Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF. Mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who truly understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify your fitness journey so you can lose fat, regain your confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Come on, let's go. Hello there, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. I'm Nathalia Melo, your host. And if you are listening to this podcast the day of its launch, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me today. At the time of this podcast launch, I am probably going to be moving my hips and eating some Brazilian Christmas food with my family. So I hope you are enjoying and spending some quality time with your loved ones. And because this is the last podcast of the year, I decided to do something a little bit different. And the reason I decided to do something a bit different is because I've been in the fitness space for almost 27 years. I had to get the calculator here because I'm almost getting a bit of whiplash. Being a coach for over 15 years. And because this is my industry, fitness, nutrition, health and wellness, I'm very curious about it. I want to learn more about it. I take courses about it. I'm well connected with the people who know a lot about it. So it's very easy for you to assume that everybody knows all the nuances of everything. And this is becoming kind of like particularly true because there is so much, random information on social media that what I'm seeing is that people are becoming more confused than clear on what they should be doing, what is best for them. And what gave me the idea for this episode today was from my own personal experience in running a business with areas I know a little bit about, but not so much to know all the terminologies and understand what things are. I can understand, for example, a website. I understand the basics of a website. You have the landing page, you have this, you have that. If you have any tech people here, you're following me. But I realized whenever I hired somebody to help me redesign my website, that a lot of tech people talk to you, the person who doesn't really understand very much about website. You understand just kind of a little bit, just enough to, say a few words to sound fancy. And then they start talking to you like you know all the terminologies and you know what does what. And they assume that you know all those things. And it gets to a point that you don't even know exactly what questions to ask and what the person is even talking about because the person is using terminologies that you don't really understand. And you're afraid of asking questions and sounding stupid. And then it just becomes cloudy because you have no clarity on what to ask and the person has no clarity on what to do. And this I've noticed in many different areas of business. If you're asking for a graphic design, oh, what's like DPX? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just need something for my Instagram. Cool. So everybody in their own industry tend to speak in the lingo of their industry to people who are not experts in their industry. In the fitness industry is no different. And I'm seeing this happen repeatedly. And even when I'm speaking to people and I'm getting questions on social media, I can see that people are trying to use the fancy words and overthinking things because they saw somewhere and they think that that's the right way to do it. And because I have been in it for so long, I'm able to, cut through the bullshit and see things for what they are. But if you're not in the industry, you're not going to be able to simplify a process or marketing tactic because you are not in that industry. So For today's episode, I'm going to be answering 10 questions that I have received throughout the year that really got me thinking. And by seeing these questions come in, they made me realize that there is still so much confusion and lack of clarity when it comes to fitness, nutrition, health, well-being, wellness. And, the questions range from overtraining to semaglutide, or how much progress should I expect whenever you are following something. And these questions highlight the struggle that so many women face. And I really want to be able to answer these without the fluff, without judgment, just breaking it down, making it as simple as possible, making it clear, and giving you the straightforward answers to some of the most surprising questions I've gotten on social media. Thank you all very much for the reviews. Keep on leaving them. I love you for that. Make sure you're sharing this podcast with your friends. Now that we're done with all the formalities, let's go straight into it. So question number one, and by the way, whenever I say questions, some of them are questions, some are like comments or people kind of putting themselves down because of X, Y, and Z, and you're going to understand what I'm saying. So it's almost like a combination of questions and comments that people make about their strategies that I'm going to be breaking it down today for you. And the first one is, somebody told me, I'm struggling to find a workout routine I enjoy that doesn't require me to be in the gym a long time. And I see this happening a lot with people that go for the challenge, the 4-week get shred, lose 30 pounds in a month kind of challenge, or whenever they try to follow the workout from somebody that their only job is to be fit and they have no other responsibility, or from someone who has that PDF one size fits all kind of strategy. And then they have 1,000 people sign up, and then 995 feel like they're falling apart, and then 5 succeed. And these are the success stories on social media. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're dreading it, chances are that you're not going to be able to be consistent with it. And if you're already limited in time, it is going to be very difficult for you to even feel motivated. And I even hate the word like, oh, I need to feel motivated. But it's hard to feel motivated really and want to do something if you're already discouraged before you even get there. So you don't need 2-3 hours workouts to see results. Efficient and effective workouts can be done. We have members in the Powerhouse Academy. They work out for 20 minutes 3 times a week. It is important to focus on what you can do, especially if you are somebody who is struggling with consistency and enjoying that process because you feel so drawn out and it starts to become a chore. You need to take a few steps back and be realistic with yourself, because what happens is that, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours 1 time a week, but I'm so burned out that I'm not going to show up for the other 4 days because I need to be there for 2 hours, 5 days a week. And then you feel discouraged. But what if instead of doing that, you did, you know what? How about I go to the gym to start 3 times a week for 30 minutes, or I work out from home 3 times a week for 30 minutes. That's less than the amount that you spend in that one time going for 2 hours. But this is going to build your confidence muscle to keep on showing up. You're going to start seeing results because remember, showing up consistently is going to give you better results than showing up perfectly one time. So if you're struggling to find a workout routine that you enjoy because the one that you have requires you to be in the gym for hours and hours, you need a new routine. And that's where a lot of people try to keep on going back to, you worked when I was in college. And I'm like, yeah, in college, you didn't have 55,000 other responsibilities and priorities in life. So you stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, because this is just going to become a never-ending cycle. The next one is, I don't understand why I get hungry when I diet. Okay, so here's the not so great news. Hunger is a part of the process whenever we're talking about fat loss. There is a normal level of hunger and there is a not so normal level of hunger. If you are getting hungry to the point that you have a headache, or that you're getting dizzy, or that you feel faint, that's not normal. You might need to reevaluate your caloric intake. But being hungry is a part of being in a caloric deficit. You shouldn't feel miserable, but it is going to happen. And you are going to have to become comfortable with that short term discomfort of the hunger and find other things to kind of distract yourself. Or what you can do is to spread out your meals throughout the day so you are eating smaller but more frequent meals, and making sure that you're incorporating lean protein foods, high fiber foods, because they will keep you fuller for longer. They take more space. So you need to accept that some hunger is going to be a part of the process. We're not talking about, I'm going to faint kind of hunger, but it just is. You can make tweaks to your plan to make sure that you're eating the things that are going to make you a bit fuller. They are going to be more nutrient dense foods. They're going to take up more space in your stomach. So going to take longer to digest. So it's going to help manage that hunger response. But expecting to lose fat without experiencing any discomfort or any hunger is not only unrealistic, but it is delusional. So I hope this was clear as day. And then still on that topic, I hope I don't rant very much about this, but the person said, I'm taking Ozempic or semaglutide, which crushes my appetite. So I'm struggling to get my protein in daily. And this is someone who needs to lose like 10 or 15 pounds. And I'm going to make it very clear. I am not anti-semaglutide. I am actually, in fact, very pro-semaglutide. We work with a lot of members in the Powerhouse Academy who are taking Ozempic or Wegovy or any kind of variation of the medication. I think it can be incredibly helpful for some people. But one of the biggest problems that I see across the board is that oftentimes they are being prescribed, with a few exceptions. There are a lot of doctors that I respect, that I know they're prescribing this in a very responsible manner. Some that I can think of, I might forget somebody, but Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, Dr. Jessica Shepard, Dr. Stephen Nadolsky, Dr. Lauren Fitz. These are all doctors that I know there are prescribing it in responsible. But what is happening is that a lot of people who are prescribing these medications don't understand nutrition. They don't understand the importance of consuming protein. So they're overprescribing. And that person is looking at the scale and is losing, it's losing all the weight. But what they don't understand is that they're losing a lot of muscle with the process because they are not mitigating the sarcopenia, aka the muscle loss that does happen with a severe caloric restriction. They are not mitigating that with consuming enough protein because they have no appetite to consume that protein. So protein is going to be incredibly important to preserve muscle and to preserve your health during a fat loss process, especially with semaglutide. There are ways that you can try and work around that with, having high protein shakes and smaller protein snacks. But this might be worth a conversation to have with your practitioner to reduce the dose a bit. And again, this is important for you to discuss with your practitioner. But remember that you also have to have a practitioner who has knowledge and understanding about nutrition and muscle maintenance and the importance of protein consumption, which not everybody does. So I'm very pro semaglutide, very. But I can see that there are a lot of people who do not understand the bare minimum of nutrition and muscle maintenance and the importance of being able to at least keep up with your protein consumption, they're just like prescribing it like it's freaking Kit Kat. And you have a lot of women losing the weight, but losing a lot of their lean muscle along the way. And whenever they regain the weight, they're not regaining the weight with the muscle. They're regaining all the weight with the fat, which is not good. So just something to keep in mind. And there are other doctors that prescribe it responsibly. I shouldn't have mentioned because now I'm going to feel guilty that I didn't mention a lot of other phenomenal doctors. So let me give a shout out to a few more here who I know that do so responsibly. Another one is Dr. Crystal Guevara. She talks a lot about semaglutide. I know that she does so very responsibly as well. And I apologize if I forgot anybody else. But if you have any questions, about a doctor that you see online and you'd like to have my opinion, send me a message. I'll be more than happy to give you my feedback. And if I don't know the answer, I'll get one of my colleagues that I know in the industry and ask for their intake as well. Or I can refer you to somebody who knows what they're doing. The next one is, can someone struggle to lose weight because they work out too much, because they're overtraining? This is actually a very, very, very common question. And I'm going to try to address this because I do not want to sound like a bitch. My goal with these answers is to help you simplify things. Okay. But let's think about it in a very straightforward way. I'm yet to meet someone who trains leisurely and has truly overtrained. Like, for context, whenever I was prepping for the Olympia, there were days that I was training 6 hours a day. And I was also bartending a lot of the time. Probably overtrained a lot of times there. So if you are not losing weight, chances are that it is unlikely because of you training too much. Because even whenever you look at it, if you're training too much, you are going to be burning more calories. Even though whenever we look at it, out of the percentage of calories that you burn in a day, the amount of calories that you burn through exercise activity is just about 5% of the total amount of calories that you burn in a day. So it's not that much. But let's say that you're increasing that because you're training just so much. You cannot even bring that up to 10%. What about the other 90? So the reason why you're probably not losing weight is because your caloric intake is not being controlled. So this has nothing to do with the training. There are some situations that it can have something to do with the training. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But if you're trying to out-exercise a shady nutrition, you can train all day if you want. You're still not going to lose weight because your caloric intake is not being controlled. We have members. We have a member that I just spoke with her a couple of days ago that she hasn't been able to be as consistent with her workout that she initially told us that she could commit to, which we're working on changing that. In 6 weeks, she has lost 11 or 12 pounds. And this is even without 100% compliance with exercise. And her exercise routine is like 40 minutes a day. So whenever it comes to fat loss, the main driver of fat loss is always going to be the nutrition. And the idea that I'm going to do better and I'm going to do more and I'm going to do more cardio and I'm going to exercise more because it's going to make me burn more calories is going to make you burn out if you are not controlling the calories. If you're not controlling your caloric intake, it's going to be very difficult for fat loss to happen because you are still not burning more calories than what you consume. And it's a lot easier to control what comes in than to control what goes out, especially because what goes out through exercise, it's like 5-7%. I have never heard anybody that is like at that 10% mark for the average person. So paying attention on your caloric intake. So what are ways that maybe training too much can impact your fat loss journey. And listen, with the experience that I have as a coach, I have seen very few people, if any, quite honestly, that have struggled to lose weight because of these scenarios that I'm going to share with you right now. But, maybe they were exercising so much that they were not sleeping well and that deregulated their appetite. Or maybe they were exercising so much and they were rewarding themselves. Oh, I exercise so much so I can eat all these things. And then it became beyond a wash because they consumed more than what they thought that they had burned. So these are some scenarios in which the extra exercising can impact the fat loss balance, but it has nothing to do with like the idea of overtraining or anything like that, but just that unintentional overcompensation that most humans tend to have. Oh, I exercise so I can eat. And then they eat a lot more than what they actually burned. Like 99% positive that there is research that shows that people underestimate how much they eat by over 50% and overestimate how many calories they burn through exercise also by 50%. So that's a terrible combination whenever we're talking about fat loss. Let's go to the next question. Oh, this one is my favorite. And this one is so common whenever somebody tells me, oh, I just changed things last week and it's working now. I've lost 2 pounds. And then my question is normally like, okay, what about before that? Oh, before that, I was doing, I don't know, like intermittent fasting. And then I lost like 15 pounds, but then I gained 20. But now, like, I'm trying this and then insert another fat diet that they are very unlikely to stick to. But hey, they've lost 2 pounds this week. And then for some reason, this is going to completely change their lives. And then what I see is that people just keep on slapping different color lipstick in a pig and try to pretend that is something else. But ultimately, is it still a fucking pig with a different lipstick color? This is a scenario where I have to have very honest conversation with people whenever they are like, I'm good now because I've been doing this for 2 weeks and it's been working because I lost like 2-3 pounds. And I'm like, right. And how many times have you started doing something that was somewhat similar from a fat diet standpoint to this that you're doing now? And then after a month, you fell off the wagon, you gained all the way back and more. Oh, it's happened loads of time. And I'm like, right. So if you want a different outcome, you have to change the strategy. This is something that happens a lot in the fitness industry, a positive bias in the perspective that people overestimate their efforts or overestimate their potential results or strategies. And at the same time, they completely ignore gaps and mistakes that they're rinse and repeating because their judgment is a bit clouded because of this small little change right now. But whenever you put in a big picture, the needle hasn't moved and things have gotten progressively kind of worse. So we need to see things for what they are. And if you can see yourself doing the same fad or the latest trend on freaking TikTok or Instagram or another cookie cutter plan, and although I love celebrating small wins, I think that there is a extra optimism over like that quick result right out of the gate that clouds people's judgment to see something more long term, which whenever you put into perspective, they have gone through that process a zillion times just by giving it different names, and then they don't understand why they're stuck. So while I do appreciate celebrating these small wins, just looking at situations from just, oh, for the past 2 weeks, this has been happening. Well, what about the past 2 months? What about the past 12 months? What about the past 2 years? Because if the trend is that things are not going the direction that you wanted to go, chances are that if you're using similar strategies, the little celebration from the 2 weeks is going to be short-lived because we need to call a spade a spade. So let's stop being so focused on that short-term kind of like win and focus on the big picture win. Another comment that I receive, I've been getting a lot of people talking about Beachbody and things like that. And I have a lot of opinions about the more cookie cutter strategy, like bootcamp, like Beachbody. Somebody was like, oh, I'm doing Beachbody videos like insanity for muscle confusion. I'm taking a moment. Okay. I'm taking a moment. Muscle confusion is a marketing myth. Real progress comes from progressively getting better, getting stronger, moving more efficiently with something over time, not with random workouts. How are you going to be able to track your progress, to track that you're getting stronger, to track that you are moving better, or maybe you have a better range of motion if every single time you're doing something completely different? Oh, but like it's fun. I get it. You can make your workouts feel fun without the idea of muscle confusion, because muscle confusion doesn't exist and it does not allow to accurately track progress because you get a lot of variables. That's one. And this is not just against Beachbody. I have a beef with a lot of group classes as your only source of physique transformation. Because let's say that you go to F45 or Orange Theory or Burn Bootcamp, whatever the hell it is. Peloton, even Peloton, all the bootcamps in Peloton, they're great. But you can have about 500 people lined up. Actually, let's not even talk about 500 people. Let's use a much smaller group of people. If you go to a Orange Theory class or F45 class right now, I want you to stand there and look around you. You're going to have Jane that wants to lose 50 pounds. You're going to have Mary that wants to lose 15 pounds. You're going to have Jane who wants to have a six pack. You're going to have Joe that wants to run a marathon. And then you have somebody else who just had a baby and she's trying to get, quote unquote, her body back. Like you have all these different people with completely different goals that are doing the exact same workout with sometimes very minimum modification, even for like the woman that just had a baby. And all these people are expecting very specific outcomes because they have very specific goals in a workout that is not specified to their needs. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. If you have specific goals for your fitness, you need a specific plan to what you want for your life, for your priorities, for all the things. There needs to be a level of specificity. As an entry level, I just want to move my body. Great. I love it. From a community standpoint, great. But you cannot use that one tool as your whole toolbox. It's kind of like wanting to build a house just with a hammer. That's not going to happen. You need every single tool in the toolbox in order to build the house, because each tool is going to have a level of specificity that building that bigger house is going to require. So that's kind of like my bit of a beef. And it's not just Beachbody, is Beachbody and like bootcamp classes and things like that. I think they're great. I have a Peloton. I love my Peloton. But I don't have the physique that I have because of the Peloton rides that I do. It's a tool, but it's not the whole toolbox. All right. Next question. Oh, I'm going to try not to kind of go off on this one, but this was what the person told me. She said, my ultimate goal would be to compete in a bikini competition and maintain a weight of about 60 to 64 kilos without always dieting. And this was a recent conversation. So that's why it's so fresh in my mind. And this is someone who is nowhere near that. Like whoever is coaching her already has her in like 1,100 calories or 1,200 calories. And she's 74 kilos, which that in pounds is about 162. 162 pounds, 163 almost. She's being fed at 1,100 calories. And her goal is to do a bikini competition so she can maintain that lower weight. I have a full podcast talking about my experience competing. Was in the bodybuilding industry for a long time, still very good friends with a lot of people in the bodybuilding industry. Competing is extreme. If you're going into it with the expectation that you're going to get to that goal of stage and you're going to be able to maintain, I'm afraid I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. It's very unlikely to happen. Maintaining that post-show weight is going to take a mindset shift that most competitors do not have based on the strategies that they use to get there. They get there with extremes and then they expect to stay there with like their newfound kind of realistic strategy. It's not going to happen. In order for you to maintain that, you're going to have to get there with a realistic strategy because it is not about the speed in which you took to get there or why you got there, but the person that you became along the way to get there. Those steps and the failures that you're going to have along the way are going to allow you to become the person that you need to be and build the habits that you need to build to be able to maintain that. And I think that that's where a lot of people miss the boat whenever we're talking about bodybuilding competitions, because they think they're like, oh, I'm going to look like that. And then like, I'm just going to stay there. Especially in the first show, I'm yet to see somebody. In my many years in the bodybuilding space, I don't think I have ever come across someone that was able to get there and stay there, especially after a first show. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but my own personal experience too, nope. All right, next question. How much is my body supposed to change every month if I stick to a meal plan and a gym routine? So this is not about selling my program or anything like that. But this right here is one of the main reasons why having a coach is so important. It is oftentimes very difficult for you to be objective, especially if you are a high achiever. It is very challenging for you to be objective, especially with something that is so close to you, like your physique and your body. There's so much associated with that is very challenging for someone to have no bias at all and to be objective whenever they're looking at themselves. So that is the beauty of having somebody outside of yourself who has experience telling you, no, this is part of the process. Like that is one of the most common conversations that we have in the Powerhouse Academy. We have loads of phases and we prepare our members on what to expect in each one of them so they don't get frustrated. And whenever we get there, we kind of remind them, remember whenever we had that conversation, because expecting progress should be linear and to have like this cookie cutter, straight to the point. This is how it's going to be. This is like the process exactly as is across the board is going to be challenging because progress is not linear. What we encourage a lot is to set expectations that are aligned with your lifestyle, they're aligned with your priorities in life, and focus on the person that you're becoming along the way instead of just obsessing 24/7 over the actual outcome or how fast you can get to the end goal. But it's very hard to be realistic with the process when you are not really sure what the process looks like and when you don't have clarity on what you should look like, what you can expect of yourself to look like, because you can't be objective. I'm yet to meet a woman that is like, you know what? I love everything about how I look. I talk with a lot of women. I'm yet to meet one that is like, I love everything. There is always that one little thing that they tend to criticize. And listen, I'm guilty as shit of that. That's why I have a coach, because I also struggle to objectively look at the progress that I'm making, or if I'm going the right direction, or if I'm not getting enough rest, or if I'm not eating enough protein. So having that set of eyeballs outside of yourself to constantly remind you that, progress is not going to be linear. From a fat loss standpoint, the benchmark that we use with our members is anywhere between half a pound to 2 pounds a week. I know that is a broad number, but again, I don't like to give like very specifics because everybody's life is going to look a little bit different. And it is about understanding the person's reality and what they're going to be able to stick with so that they don't just lose like the 20 pounds in 2 months, but they're able to lose the 20 pounds in whatever amount of time it takes, but also able to maintain so we're not having the same conversation a year down the line. So how much my body's supposed to change every month if I stick to a meal plan and a gym routine? It depends. What kind of change are you wanting to see? Are you wanting to build muscle? Because that's going to take a little bit longer. Are you setting, expectations that are aligned with the effort that you're putting? Because just because you're being consistent, which is going to be aligned with the next question that I'm going to be answering. Like if you're being consistent with something that is not optimal, then you're going to be consistent with shit. Which then brings me to my next question. I'm very consistent with my workout. I probably overtrain. You see the overtraining again here, the trend? Train 6 days a week and I get 10,000 steps. I have no idea where getting 10,000 steps became overtraining, but here you are. And I'm following my macros and just maintaining. I'm going to be a bit sassy with my response on this one, but y'all should be used to it by now. If you are consistently following a shitty plan, you are going to consistently get shitty results. It's as simple as that. So while I do appreciate that this person is being consistent, and I do know that something that I speak often about is the importance of consistency. If you are consistently doing something that is not optimal, that is not aligned, that you think it's aligned with your goals, but it's actually not, you are not going to get to where you want to be. A good example that I use is for my folks in the United States. Imagine that you are coming from Florida and you want to go to New York. Straight line, up and down. Just take 95 north and you're going to end up in New York at some point, right? So, hey, I want to go from Florida to New York. Got it. Now imagine that that person is there and then they're consistently driving towards the left. And the next thing you know, whenever they get to Georgia, they're completely like the other way, facing west. But they're driving there consistently. They're hardly taking any breaks and just moving forward and driving consistently. That person is not going to go to their destination, which was New York. At this point, that person is going to end up in California. But hey, I'm being consistent. Yes, you're being consistent, going the wrong way. So although you might get somewhere, it is not the somewhere that you wanted to go. And this is what I see a lot of times with people whenever it comes to their fitness and nutrition routine, is that they have this idea of like, oh, I'm being consistent. But if you are consistently doing shady things, you're going to consistently get shady results. We have a professional golfer that we coach. And I was having this conversation with her and I used the analogy. And if we have any golfers there, I think you're going to get this. I'm not a golfer, but my mother-in-law is. So I just listen and I pretend I know what they're talking about. But I do know one thing. You do have to practice your swing. And I asked this person who is in our member in the Powerhouse Academy, who is a professional golfer. I'm like, let's call her Mary. Mary, imagine that you go to the range every single day and you're practicing your swing, but you're practicing wrong. But nobody's telling you that it's wrong. But you consistently go to the range every single day and you're practicing that swing, the wrong swing, but you're practicing every single day. Are you going to get better at that swing? And she goes, no. And I'm like, why? And she goes, because I'm practicing wrong. And I'm like, right. But what if you're doing it consistently? Are you going to get better? She's like, no. And I'm like, why? She's like, because I'm practicing incorrectly. And this is exactly what happens when people are so hyper-focused on just this one variable, the consistency, which, listen, it's going to be very unlikely for you to get results without consistency. But you need to be consistently doing the thing that is going to serve you. and that is aligned with your goals. Otherwise, you're going to be practicing the wrong swing consistently, and you're just going to either get worse or become stagnant. So a few things to pay attention. Are your macros appropriate for your body and activity level? Are your workouts aligned with your goals? These are all things that need to be asked and honestly answered, because we cannot be delulu. And then the next one is, this one is like ending with a bow. Oh, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight because all my foods are homemade. I am a big fan of homemade food. We actually have a member who joined us. Let me pull up the data here. She joined us about 4 weeks ago, and I would say that 95% of her meals before she joined were eating out, were restaurant food, because she doesn't like to cook. Like, she's like, I'm not a very good cook, and I don't like to cook, so I just eat in restaurants. She's been with us at the time of this recording for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And this is her without even being 100% compliant with the plan that we gave her. She just changed to not eating out as often. In 4 weeks, she's down 6.5 pounds by just removing a big portion of her meals to being from restaurant. Now, whenever somebody tells me, oh, all my foods are homemade and I eat healthily, one thing that people need to understand is that, and I have another podcast on this, is like the whole myth of healthy. Everybody thinks that, I eat healthy. Well, you can gain weight by eating healthily. And just because something is homemade, and I see, I homemade food, and it's like a block of butter, and then like double cream and pasta every single day with bacon and fried chicken parm. Oh, but it's homemade. Yeah, it's still incredibly caloric, and you're still eating for a family of 27. So although home food is great, it does not always equate to a calorie control, or that food is significantly less caloric. So there needs to be a conversation about portion sizes, calorie density, and make sure that those things align with your goals. Because just, I eat healthy, I eat homemade food. Yeah, you can eat homemade food. I mean, if you look at some of the shows of 600 pounds and whatever, a lot of them are eating at home, some fast food, but a lot of times it's kind of also homemade stuff, but it's all hypercaloric with portions that are incredibly big. So understanding the importance of portion size and the calorie density of those food items that you're consuming is incredibly important. So these are the questions I got asked the most this past year. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it helped to gain some clarity on a lot of things. I speak a lot in analogy because I think it makes it a lot easier to understand. And if you have any burning questions, or you just want the truth about something you've heard online, send me a message. Maybe answering questions from social media becomes a thing, and I do more of these. So send me a question either on social media. The link is down in the show notes, or on the fan mail that you can also send here in the show notes, and let me know what you'd like to know. I'm super excited to hear from you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your holiday season. Happy New Year. And I cannot wait to see you next year and kick off all the big and amazing goals for the new year with very realistic and aligned strategies that you're going to be able to sustain throughout the year. See you there. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram. Links are down below as well. And let me know what topics you want to hear more about, or who I should have on the show. This is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.